Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Erica McNichol from Galvin Technologies. I see everyone is kind of populating the waiting room, so we'll get started in just a few seconds here. I just wanted to welcome everyone and thank you for attending today's webinar. All right. So it seems like we're fairly settled. We'll go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Erica McNichol. You're attending a webinar for Marketing Cloud Account Engagement, which will be led by Yvette. We will get to introductions here shortly, but wanted to take care of a couple of housekeeping items up front. Number one, if you have questions, go ahead and pop them into the Q&A that's included in the webinar interface. We're not going to be answering those until the end, just to enable Yvette to go through her flow. So do put those in the Q&A and we will address them at the end of the presentation and demo. We also will have captions on. So if you're someone who loves captions, go ahead and pop those on. You can kind of see in real time what is being spoken. Also, this is going to be recorded. So if you or any of your colleagues would like to go back and refer to anything that's presented today, it will be made available in a follow-up email. So with no further ado, we're going to go ahead and get going. Thank you again for coming to Marketing Cloud Account Engagement for Nonprofit Cloud. It'll be led by Yvette Montague, and my name is Erica May McNichol. I work here at Galvin Technologies, and a little bit about us. We've been working with nonprofits and organizations on Salesforce and in digital engagement strategies since 2004. We have employees all across the United States and North America, and are really proud to serve the nonprofit space. I myself sit outside of Philadelphia. I've been working in the Salesforce ecosystem for nonprofits for 8 years now, and technology consulting for nonprofits for 17. I'll hand it over to Yvette to introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Yvette Montague. I am the account engagement lead here at Galvin Technologies, specializing in all things marketing. I've been working with Salesforce since 2003 and with account engagement since 2016 when Salesforce first purchased Pardot. I've worked in different capacities in Salesforce. So I've worked as a system administrator, as a marketing director, as a salesperson, as a consultant. So I've seen all the different hats. My latest role was as a marketing director, and then I flipped into consulting. And the reason I absolutely love Pardot is because it was the first time where I saw it was possible to take all of your marketing initiatives and see if it actually generated a business result. So a direct line to, I sent an email, did it generate money? We had an event, how much money did it generate? How many leads did it generate? So whatever the goal, whether that is volunteer hours, donations, fundraising, program engagement, registrations, there's a direct line to connect your marketing efforts to the business result without having to export everything into Excel. And I'm very excited to show you how to start that journey today with this demo.
No, thanks for that, Yvette. I'm excited to see you present. You're always such an enigmatic presenter, and everyone appreciates you showing the product. So I'm going to hand it over to you to kind of talk about the account engagement products that we have at Salesforce.
Sure. So Salesforce actually sells 4 different levels or instances, packages of account engagement. Growth is their intro package. Plus, with custom objects is typically what we recommend for nonprofits because of how your system's structured. So what it does is it will let you be able to get at any nonprofit specific data, such as gift transactions or program enrollments, disbursements, anything that's outside of the norm that's specific to nonprofit. Plus, with custom objects affiliations, it lets you get at anything like that you need to get at. So that is the version we tend to recommend for nonprofits. As we go now, of course, if you want to go higher, you can, but that's the version we recommend. As I go through the demo, I will point out when I'm speaking to something regarding Plus. One thing to point out as well, we did mention that this demo is geared towards nonprofit cloud. If there are any nonprofit success pack or even just general sales cloud or service cloud users on the call, one thing to point out is that the biggest difference in the demo is that as I go through and show Salesforce screenshots, that nonprofit cloud is more geared towards person accounts, whereas a typical account might be more geared towards a contact account structure or a contact household structure. So it's really different in how things are structured in Salesforce. The account engagement software actually doesn't differ that much.
All right, thanks for that, Yvette. Before we do get started, and you'll be spending the majority of your time with Yvette as she shows you Marketing Cloud account engagement and all of the things that she discussed there. Just wanted to let you all know that we are certified partners in the Salesforce ecosystem. The majority of the clients that we work with are nonprofits. This is going to be very targeted to a nonprofit organization today. And we're able to start these types of projects within 2 to 3 weeks. So if you are looking for a partner to implement Marketing Cloud account engagement, you'll have the opportunity to work with Yvette and their team in the near term. So with no further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Yvette.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and get the demo started. And I'll just have you confirm that you can see my screen before I get started. Is everyone able to see it? Or Erica, if you could just give me a thumb.
You're good.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you, everybody. So account engagement, the way I'd like to explain how it works is I want you to think about your cell phone. And I want you to think about account engagement with the CRM the same way you think about your cell phone. When you purchase a phone, it has some basic functionality. It can make phone calls, it has an address book, it might even have a camera. And if there's something your phone can't do, you will go to the App Store, get an app, and extend the functionality of your phone. The app might also leverage pieces of your existing phone. So for example, I get WhatsApp, that app. It will leverage the existing camera, it will leverage the existing contacts, but then it will add its own interface so that I can do my video calls or my messaging via the WhatsApp app. Account engagement is that to the CRM. So the CRM has base functionality, and what account engagement does is it extends it. It leverages some of the existing functionality. So it will use campaigns, it will use contacts, right? It will use parts of the CRM, but then it adds this interface so that you can do mass marketing. Right, so that's really how the two things play together. And what I want to show you now is why use account engagement to do your mass marketing. The best reason I can give you when I think about the system and why people should use it is because of its ability for you to do smart marketing. So rather than just send emails, you want to send emails that are targeted to people's interests. And the interest tracking actually starts online. So what we do is we install code on your website that tracks who's coming to your site. So we know how many visits and how many visitors, page views they've had on your site, even before we know who the person is. The system will actually track these people using cookie technology, provided they've given you consent to track. And it will tell you, where did this person come from? So whether it's MSN, whether it's Google Natural Search or Bing Natural Search, or if your logo is on somebody else's website, like a trade show website, it will tell you where it came from, and it will tell you how many visits and pages this person has looked in. Once somebody eventually fills in a form, so the thought is they've started to get to know you. When they eventually fill in a form, all of this data will back populate onto their record. So you're able to not only see in the moment what they've been interested in your on your website. So for example, were they looking at specific programs? Did they check out the volunteering page? Do you have trips or fundraising? Did they look at any of those pages so that when you go to contact them, you know exactly what to speak to? But in the future, you can even trigger automation based on page visits. So I can actually trigger an automation that says maybe they visited our trip page. We're planning a trip to build schools in another country. If they visited that page, but they are not yet on the list, or they haven't yet done a trip, I can actually automatically send them into a program to receive emails. So this page interest can be not just tracked, it can be triggered upon and acted upon. But what I want to do is I want to show you the most common journey today, which is a journey from a form to an engagement program. So knowing that everything starts on the website, what we want to do next is make sure that we have your forms embedded in the system. So what we do is we rebuild all of the forms that you need currently using that are marketing forms, right? We rebuild them in account engagement so that you can track behaviors. You can decide what fields you'd like to collect, what data you'd like to collect, and it tracks everybody who's filled in these forms. The forms are very, very easy to build. They let you not just collect data, right? So I'll go through and I'll just show you what a wizard looks like. A lot of the software involves a wizard to help you build. So I would name it. The system is also very heavily relies on using campaigns. Campaigns are how we measure that business result I talked about earlier, right? So if I want to know if my email generated new volunteers, new donors, new subscribers, new registrations, the campaign is what measures it. And the campaign is a beautiful thing because it lets me measure different types of engagement or programs that I have against each other. So I can measure an email. I can measure that against events. I can measure that against webinars. So I can bring in my online and offline into a campaign to see, is my marketing working? I can select fields that I'd like to add to the form. It's very easy, again, to add new fields. Everything is point and click, very easy to find. So let's say I wanted to add phone number. Here it is. I can even say I want to personalize the label. I could say your preferred phone number, right? So you can personalize the labels. You can set fields as required very easily. And I can save that change. And once I save that form, that will immediately update the form on my website if it's already there. Another thing that you can do that's unique to the forms, I'm going to skip to step 5, right? So here I can label the button. Step 5 is where I could say, but what happens when somebody fills in the form? And this is where I could have a variety of actions happen. I can say, well, do you know what? When they get added, when they fill in this form, I'd like them added to a list because I am going to nurture them. Or maybe I would like to notify somebody in Salesforce. I'd like to assign it to somebody. And I can assign, I could say, do you know what? I want to assign all of these leads to one specific person. I could do that. And I could find the person I'd like to assign it to. Or I can say, do you know what, depending on a field on my form, I could have a field that says, what area are you interested in? And I could make that assignment conditional. So I could say, if that field equals programs, send it to this person in programs. If it equals volunteer, send it to this person in the volunteer team. So you can actually make your form actions quite intelligent to integrate and communicate with people in your organization who may even be outside of marketing. Not only can you do an assignment to that person, you could say, after I've signed the record, I want to track to make sure that they've done their follow-up. So I'm able to do things like create a Salesforce task for them. And I could say, do you know what, every time somebody fills in the form and it's signing it to a volunteer, create a follow-up potential volunteer task, and we can follow up with that, or even just an email notification if that's preferred. So I am going to go ahead and I am going to do a cold nurture, add them to the cold nurture. If somebody fills in this form, I will also assign it to one of my users, Alexander, and I will also do a task to let them know that we have a new submission when they fill in the form. New potential volunteer. Right, and whoever is assigned to that record in Salesforce will get this task. I will give them 1 day to get it done. And then I will go ahead and I will confirm and save my form. Once the form is created, you're able to view it using this link. You're able to design the form to look exactly like your website. So this is an example of a form that has a blue button. It's a full 100% width button with the fields that we've added, including the your preferred phone number that we just added. All of the forms are responsive. So as you can see, as I open or close, it just changes the size. So wherever you put it on your website, it will resize to fit. You can do 1-column form, 2-column forms, any design you want to match your exact branding colors, the fonts on your website so that it's a seamless match to your existing branding. Once somebody fills in the form, and I'll go ahead and fill in my details here. You immediately get that thank you message. Now, again, this would be loaded on your website, so it would be surrounded by your web content. And then once somebody fills in that form, they immediately show up as a submission below so that you're able to see their record. Once somebody fills in the form as well, you're able to see all of their activity, if they've done anything else with your organization, and that would include page views and visits. So this is where the journey starts, right? And what we said is we want to be able to add them to a list. We're going to add them to our cold lead nurture. So the thought is that depending on the form that the person is filled in, I want to be able to, and see, there's my little record that has populated. And if I take a look at it, you'll be able to see that here's the form that I filled in. You can see that I took a look at a few pages. And if I wanted to, I could even click through to see what those two pages are. So you can see all of the activity related to somebody's record. It also triggered all of the actions, right? So remember, I put a few actions to communicate with staff. I said I wanted to assign it to somebody in Salesforce, and I also wanted to create a task. If I click on the blue cloud, that takes me into the Salesforce record. So this is what your non-marketing co-parts will see when they get something sent to them. So here, what it's done is it's created a lead. It's populated all of the information from the form. It assigned it to the person who I specified on the form. And if I look on the right-hand side, I can also see that there was a task created for Alex saying new potential volunteer so that he can follow up with them. So it's seamless integration or communication with Salesforce. It's the same platform. So it's seamless communication. And it's a way to make sure that everybody in the organization knows what's happening in marketing and what's their part in the next step to move the prospect in the journey. So part of the journey was also adding them to a list. What I can now do with that list is I could say, well, do you know what? Anybody who fills in this specific form, I want to add them to a welcome series. So how do we create a welcome series? I'll show you that now. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead here and I'll say I'd like to create a new engagement program. So some people refer to these as drip campaigns. In Salesforce, we refer to these as engagement programs because it's not just sending an email. A traditional drip, the whole point of the drip is to say I'm sending an email today and then maybe one next week and then 2 weeks later, and I drip the communications. In account engagement, it's actually a lot smarter. So we want to engage the person. The purpose of an engagement program, it's similar to what I would say panning for gold. You want to pick up that little plate of gold and sift it until just the nuggets are left. And that's what the engagement program does. It sifts everybody you're speaking to just find the ones that are showing engagement so that you can pass them to the next step. Why not everybody? Why was this model changed? It's because the world is getting a lot smarter. So all of our email platforms, whether it's Gmail or Outlook or Yahoo or corporate servers, all of these programs now use deep learning and AI. And what they are doing is they're actually analyzing every email that you send. So if I send an email to 5,000 people, and out of those 5,000, 500 are on Gmail, Gmail will take a look at my email performance and it will say, okay, 60% of the people did not open your email. And if I keep sending emails that have large unopened rates, I'm actually teaching their AI, their deep learning, that my emails aren't important. And what that means is that Gmail will no longer put my emails in an inbox. It will put it in an other box. It might be the promotions box. It might be the update box. We don't want it in the spam box, but it could be that box as well, depending on how people are reacting to your email. So it's very important that as you go through an engagement program, that you make sure that you're only continuing to email people who show interest so that the open rates are actually what's growing, and we're teaching the AI that our emails are important. So here what I'm going to say is I'm going to say this is a new volunteer nurture. Right? They filled in the form and I now want to nurture them along towards application. For the recipient information, I can go ahead and find that list that we had added the person to, and I can continue from here. Let me just scroll down a little bit to show you. And I could say, well, do you know what? I'm adding all of the people who are on the nurture, but I can exclude certain people. So if I had a list of existing volunteers or partners or anybody else who I don't actually want to include, I could say, well, yes, let's not include anybody who's on our customer list because they're already engaged. Go ahead and again, as if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A and we'll answer them after the demo. So now what I've got is I've got a blank canvas off of which to start my program. So I know that they've signed up to be a volunteer. I know that I've created a task for somebody to follow up with them within a day. And what I could do from here is I could say I'd also like to send them an email. So I could find a welcome email, and here it is, and I can add it to my journey. And if I'm not sure if this is the email I actually wanted to add, there's a little camera here where I could preview it, and I could even get a better look at the email to make sure this is the one I wanted to add. There's a few options for sending as well. So I could say I'd like to send this email immediately, or I'd like to wait. Because I know that they just received if there's an autoresponder, they would have just received an email. So maybe I wouldn't send another one back to back. I could say I want to wait a day. Maybe I want to wait 2 days, knowing that somebody's calling them. Or if there's no autoresponder, I could say, well, do you know what? I want to wait 4 hours after they submitted the form to send this email. So it can be same day, or it can be a few days later. This option here on date, this would be great if you're creating an engagement program to invite somebody to an event or a webinar. So I could say, do you know what? Send the first email 4 weeks before the start date, and I could find that exact date here. In this example, we will say we're going to wait a day. We'll go ahead and save, and it's going to send the email. When I open up the little plus signs, not only can I take actions, and there's a variety of actions, I can listen for the prospect's response to my message. So did they open, did they click, did they download, did they submit the form? Whatever my call to action is, I can listen for that action. So here, if I'm listening, I could say, well, did they actually open the email? And I can't assume that they're waiting for my email. They might be out, they might be sick. I'm going to give them 3 days to open my email, and I'm going to check back. If they have opened the email, great. I'm going to now see, did they do the call to action that I've requested? So let's say that in this email, this particular email, I was providing them with more information, and I gave them a link in the email to click to read more about our volunteer program. If it's a specific link in the email, I could find it, I could link to it, and I could say I'm going to listen for 1 additional day for that link click, and it creates a decision tree for me. So again, the goal is to engage people who are showing interest, and to let the other ones live to fight another day. You don't want people unsubscribing because you're continuing to send them information about something they're not interested in. So maybe what I would do is, okay, they didn't open this email. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take an action. I'm going to add them to a different list. They're not interested in volunteering. Let's see if they're interested in our programs. Let's see if they're interested in donations. So let's say if they're interested in our programs, I'm going to add them to the program list, the nurture list, and then I am going to exit them out of the program, right? I'll continue the journey with those who are showing interest. Another thing, right? So when you're in marketing, you often get other teams asking you, how many people have responded yet? How is that working? How is that going? That's where our campaigns come into play. What you can do with any program or anything that you're doing in an account engagement is you can choose to push those actions to a campaign. A campaign is something that is universally available to anybody in your organization. And I could say, do you know what? I want to push them to the campaign so that everybody can see how many emails have been sent, how many emails have been opened, how many emails have been clicked, how many people are on email 2, how many people are on email 3. And now I'm taking that pressure off of the marketing team of having to provide reports, and it allows anybody in the organization to go to a campaign and see how people responded to a campaign or to a campaign report, which is available in any part of Salesforce, even if you're not in marketing, to see how the campaign is actually going. I can also, if I wanted to, in this engagement program, is I could subdivide my list. I could divide it, and I could decide at any given point in time, I need to send a different message to different audience members. And it can be based on quite a few different pieces of information. It could be based on data that I've collected. It could be based on past participation in different campaigns. So what I could do here is I could say, well, do you know what? We are going to send a different message to people who are in California. And I could say that will be based on the state. So I could say if the state is, and we all know that our data isn't always perfect. So I could say if the state is CA or state is California. I could add another condition and say, is it California? And I could save it and it would check to see if they're in that state. So if they're in California, I would send them one email. And I could find that template. If the template is not yet created, I could even leave this blank to start doing just the journey. And if they are not in California, I'm going to send them a completely different email. And I'm going to wait, and this one might be sent a little bit later than those who are actually in California. Right, so I can go ahead and continue to build out my journey. Once it's completely built out, I can go ahead and test it. So I could say, if somebody were to start this program today, I could say that I'm sending them an email, and you could see the timing change along this little testing log. I'm going to say, yes, they did open the email. And I'm going to say, yes, they did click that link. I'm going to check to see if they're in California. I'm going to say, no, they're not. And I'm going to go ahead and exit them out of the program. So I know that overall this program, if I look at the stats below, you can see that it took 8 days to go through and they received 2 emails in 8 days. So from here, I can say, am I over communicating? Am I under communicating? Would I like to change the timing? This program test frame is also very important if you're doing something like inviting people to a webinar or to an event. You want to make sure that the key communications are happening before the start of your event, right? So it's a great way to test. Once you're ready, you start the program and people will start to flow through it. So again, I have a list that's populating. People fill in a form. As they fill in the form, they're added to my list. As they're added to the list, they'll go through my engagement program. And based on the behaviors that they're taking, they'll either remain in the program or can be removed at any time, right? So I have that suppression list. As soon as they sign up to become a volunteer, they will be immediately removed irrespective of what step they're in. So it's a great way to automate some of the more repetitive communications that you're doing with your audiences, depending on their segment, to move them through their individual journeys. Now, the third thing I wanted to show you was actually, well, how do we build these communications? How do we build these emails? What does the email builder look like? So you're able to build templates. The templates are a high level look and feel for your emails. So for example, I have a white paper download template, and here is what it looks like. It's a template that anytime we have a white paper, I know that we could simply populate it with real content, with real benefit statements, and with a link to actually connect to the correct white paper. And I have another template for our annual event. And you can see that this one is geared more towards events. And again, I could put in all of the details here as well. When I'm ready to actually build an email, I would go to the email content, and this is where I would use that template to create my message. So here I would go ahead and click new. And let's say that we're going to have a webinar, and it is going to be a overview, and it's going to be in February. I would go ahead and select my template here. Also, you're able to say people can only access certain templates as well. So there is privacy. We could say certain people can see certain templates and use them. And then I can go ahead and save it. And I'll show you a little bit about what the email builder looks like. So if I edit in Builder, here is where I can go ahead and build my email. So there are different, it's broken into 3 parts. On the left-hand side are all the different things I can add to an email. The center is my builder, and then the right is where I could add additional details, right? So I could add a pre-header. This green background, I could say, well, do you know what? I don't want that to be light green. I want it to be white, or maybe off-white. Right? So I can change the background. It's very easy to modify the style elements of my email. Maybe I want my image to be full bleed to that color I just did. So I don't want any padding on the left or right. And there we go. If I wanted to add additional text, let's say that I wanted to add another image or another text blocks, I could simply drag and drop the blocks to where I'd like them to be. And then from here, I can search for my images. If they're already loaded, I can simply select the image that I'm looking for. If the images are not yet loaded, I can go ahead and add the content. So I can come here and I can look for wherever the image is, and I can upload the image from my computer to add it to the email. Also, if your images are stored in a database and you don't necessarily want to move the images, you can link to the images just simply using the image URL. So I can add additional images to modify my email. I'll go ahead and add an image or two. Let's say that we wanted to add, let's go ahead and add a picture super quick. Here we go. I'd like to add this image to my email. And here we go. And if I wanted to change the size of the image, I could do that. I could say, well, do you know what? I actually didn't want it to be that big. I wanted it to be a little smaller. And there we go. I can also edit any of the text. So here's where I can add any of the details. I simply select the text block. I could change the text information here on the right-hand side with the editor. I can also say, do you know what? I want this block to stand out a little bit. I could go to the column setting and I could say, I want a little bit of a background on this block. And I could make that background, let's say if I wanted it a light pink. And you can see now this background stands out a little bit more. Or I could say, well, do you know what? I just want one section to stand out a little bit more. And I could grab anything that is not in that section. So I could say just this bottom part, I want it to be a different color. Right, so you can see I could drag and drop my content anywhere I need it to be. It's very easy to adjust any of the details in the email builder. And I can even check to see what does this email look like on a phone so that I'm happy with how everything is resizing. Very easy to use, drag and drop and point and click. Now, this email builder is the email builder preferred by people who are not fans of code. There is another email builder available. I won't show it today, but if you do want to set up a separate demo to see it, you can. It's an advanced email builder. The advanced email builder is for people who want to do emails that are a bit more sophisticated. So it's still very easy to use. It's still point and click. But if you wanted to get to the code of the entire email, you could. Or if you wanted to get into the code to do something different than a typical email, you'd be able to do it. It also gives you the ability to do things like do a litmus test. Litmus test would be, I want to see the email, not just in a generic phone view, but I want to see what it looks like in AOL or Outlook 2013 and Gmail. It lets you view the emails in different clients. It also will give you a spam analysis on your email, right? So there's the basic email builder that I just showed you, but there's also an advanced email builder that lets you do things that are a bit more sophisticated, just as easy to use. It's a little bit more point and click instead of drag and drop, but that's available as well. So we're tracking the person. They filled in a form. We've created an engagement program to communicate with them. I've shown you how to create those communications. I also wanted to let you know there are additional things that you can track in the system. I already mentioned the pages. So if somebody visits different pages on your website, you can trigger actions to happen. You can also track if somebody downloads your content. So you can store what I would call customer-facing downloadables in the system, such as white papers. And you can track how many people have downloaded that. Actually, let me go to files. You can track how many people have downloaded that document. right? So here is my white paper. And as people are downloading it, it will actually record who's downloaded it here. And just like with the form, you can set actions. I could say if somebody downloads this white paper, maybe this is one I'm going to push into Salesforce for somebody to call on. Or if they download this white paper, I know that they're interested in this topic, so I'm going to add them to a nurture series to continue to educate them on this topic and get them to engage. I can also do links. So any link that lives outside of my website, I can track these as well. Think of it this way. You're participating in a trade show. You want to know how many people came from the trade show to your website, like how many leads did the trade show actually send you. You can set up a link that goes to your homepage and give this link to the trade show, and the system would then track how many people have clicked on this link who actually filled in a form. And this would give you a true count of how many leads are being referred to from that trade show. So you can track form submissions, link clicks, file downloads. And the whole point of this is to be able to track what people are interested in without having to continually ask them what they are interested in by forcing them to fill in a form. So that's where the engagement comes in the account engagement. Hopefully this has been a good overview of how the system works. To give you an idea of how it behaves. And what I will do is I'll just show one additional thing just to show you that you do have a plethora of reports available to you to track your campaign performance, to track how long is it taking people to go through your journey. So for example, it's showing us from visitor to prospect to being pushed to Salesforce for somebody to follow up, to opportunity creation, to generating revenue. How long did that journey take? And are there any sticky points or bottlenecks that we need to address where we could get a nurture in there to help move them along? So lots of great tools available to you. Lots of great reports available to you. Lots of ways to follow up on your prospects. And with that, what we will do is we'll open up the session for questions.
Thanks so much, Yvette. So we've got 2 questions. The first is from Olivia, and they had asked this kind of early on. So when it comes to the code and the cookies for our website, is this something account engagement will help us install, or do we need to do that ourselves?
So account engagement will generate the website tracking code, and then we provide it to you to add to your website. If you need assistance with that, we will actually help you with the placement. So we will either tell you there's, for example, there's a WordPress plugin you can get, or if you're using something else like Wix, we would show you actually where to embed the code. So that's part of the services offered by Galvin when we help you with the implementation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And another question that came in, where are the segments built?
The segments, actually, I could show you that. We have a little bit of time. So the segments are built using lists. There's 2 ways to add people to the list, like what I showed you, where we could add them from a form submission. But you can also build something called a smart list. Let's say that I wanted to find everybody who's previously donated, right? I want to find our donor list. I can find data using any field in Salesforce to say if that field, if the person meets the criteria of the field that I've set, go ahead and add them to the list. So from here, I could find the field that houses the information about gift information, or I could look straight at opportunities and say, do they have any closed won opportunities against their record? And it will add them to the list. So I could say, I want to find anybody with a related opportunity. Or I could say, I want to find them with an opportunity that is closed won. And it's been closed in the past few days, or it's greater than $500, or it is for a specific product or an event, right? So I can use the list builder to find and match people. And the beautiful part about this is I like to call them set it and forget it lists. So once I set the criteria and I create the list, the system is always searching for people who meet the criteria and adding them to the list. If somebody no longer meets the criteria, let's say part of the criteria is, and they live in California and they move and the state on their record is updated, they would be removed from the list. So there is a whole list building section of the software that lets you build lists based on not just field data, but engagement data. Did they open any emails in the past 6 months? Did they download that specific form? did they download that specific file? So hopefully that helps answer that question.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so let's see, we might have another question. Is there a way to test how strong an email subject line is? And that's from Macy.
That's a good question. So I would say to test there are ways to test. I could give you some best practices, but with the software, no. So the software will not give your subject line like a rating to say that this is a good subject line. But we do have best practices when we do the implementation, where we would tell you here are different ways to test subject lines. You can do an A/B test, right? So an A/B test would be the closest thing where I don't know what the subject line should be. I have two options. So what I would do is I'm sending to 1,000 people. I could A/B test with 50 people first, or maybe 100 people first, and whichever subject line wins, it will automatically send that subject line to the remainder of the people. I could test for as short as an hour or as long as 30 days or somewhere in between. So I could say, I'm sending an email, test with 50 people. After 4 hours, whichever one won, send to the remainder.
Thanks for that. Another question is just kind of general, you know, permissions. So someone asked, are we able to email based on express permissions? For example, a newsletter that I have opted into and indicated interest, and then implied an email given when donating.
That all depends on where the person resides. That's not so much of a software function, it's more of a legal function. So for example, in the US, you could email them if they've donated, if they've signed up, if you found the list on the floor, you could email them. But in other countries, you have to get explicit consent before you can email them. You always have the option to do emails that are non-marketing. So let's say that your organization is going to be closed, unplanned, or you've changed addresses, or there's something you need to communicate that has nothing to do with marketing. You have the ability to send something called an operational email, and that email can be sent to anybody, whether they've opted into emails or not, because it is not a marketing message.
Good to know. All right, thanks, Yvette.
You're welcome. Any other questions? So one thing I would like to add as well, so if this has generated interest in your organization, please feel free, if needed, if you have other details or questions that you'd like to have, you can always set up a private demo specifically to your organization. Otherwise, I would like to thank you for your time and attention on this demo, and all the best with your marketing.
Thanks, Yvette. And before everyone leaves, I did want to just recap a few things. So I will share some slides, and you're able to, if you'd like to speak further to Yvette or myself, I will have a QR code here in just a moment. But just as a reminder, obviously you've seen the wealth of information Yvette brings to all of her engagements. We do this work and can be engaged within 2 to 3 weeks if there's something that you would like to get going on. We also do asset design and creation and really act as an extension of your marketing team. So thanks so much for coming. This is my information. I'll leave it up here. So if you want to get in touch with me, you can scan that QR code, schedule some time, or take that email address, emcnichol@galvantech.com. I hope everyone has a great day and really appreciate everyone attending here. We look forward to speaking with you soon. Here.